Welcome to Postscript. Here we hope to answer your questions and help you dig deeper into the messages and sermons at Faithbridge by talking with the teacher of the day.
Hello and welcome to Postscript. My name is Adam McIntire and I am joined today by Timothy Ateek, who just preached a sermon on how we can maximize joy within our family, within our relationships with our family. Timothy, thank you so much for joining us today.
You bet. Always great to be at Faithbridge.
Yeah, really enjoyed your sermon today, and you had a lot of just really good applicable points for how we can maximize joy within our family. Do you mind just running through those points again for us real quick?
Yeah, you bet. So point one was just consider your dash, the dash that's in between your birth date and expiration date that you don't have any control over how long it is, just how you live it. So consider your dash. Point two was let God be God. And that's really dealing with relinquishing control over your kids. Point three was seek wisdom. That, you know, as age increases, teachability often decreases, and that just shouldn't be the case. We need people a few stages down the road to speak into our lives. Point four was get really good at asking for forgiveness and asking for and extending forgiveness. And then point five was families who pray together stay together.
That's right. Thanks for running through that.
Yeah, you bet.
So one of the points that really spoke to me was talking about parents who they want to have control of their kids. They want to make sure their kids have the best life possible. They want to make sure their kids know Jesus and are following Jesus, have submitted their lives to Jesus. But you mentioned in your sermon, that's just not, you can't do that. That's not a real thing. So could you speak more to the parents who might feel that burden, like, man, they just really want their kids to follow a certain path in life, to know Jesus, but they feel like they're failing and they're just not doing it well. Could you speak more to that?
Well, I think it's even a bigger picture than just the spiritual aspect of life. You know, something for me as a dad with my two boys, I personally have put a lot of pressure on myself just as a dad, that I want my kids to know the Lord. But not just that, I want them to be respectable human beings. I want them to be men of character and integrity and purity, all these things that I pray for them and try and parent in them. And, you know, I have all of these moments, these daily moments with my kids where it feels like there's little to no progress in those specific areas of their lives. And when I'm looking for massive amounts of progress every day, there's a lot of room for disappointment. And, you know, because I put a lot of pressure on myself, it's a lot of, there's a great chance that I'm going to put a lot of pressure on my kids that they really shouldn't have to shoulder. And that's when I'm parenting out of fear. Any pressure you feel is often because you're dealing with fear. I have fear that my kid won't be a Christian. I have fear that he won't be a man of character and integrity. But you have to remember that these are just moments, daily moments in their lives, and you're running a marathon with your kids. And I look back on things that I made such a big deal about with my boys when they were 3 and 4. And I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought that those were like make or break moments with my kids. And now I look back and I'm like, it really was not that big of a deal. Now, I'm not trying to say the spiritual aspect of your kid's life isn't a big deal, but what I am saying is, like I was just at a family camp with my kids and I shared it on stage, but we had family devotionals every morning. And I think we had maybe 1 or 2 out of 5 or 6 good ones. And it's so easy for me to get frustrated in the moment. Like, I need you to get this now, because if you don't get this now, what does that mean about you now? And what does that mean about your future? And it doesn't mean anything about their future. It doesn't mean anything about their present. It means that we're on a journey with my boys, and I have to be okay with the rough edges of my kids that are going to be there for decades. And God's going to use me to refine those things. And God's going to use a lot of other things besides me to refine those. And I have to be okay with that. just as our kids are going to have physical awkward stages like middle school,
Yeah.
like there are going to be the spiritually awkward stages of life where you love your kids through them.
Yeah.
And you take them on mission trips and they don't get anything out of it, and you be okay with that, knowing that you're planting, you're working the soil, and praying like crazy, trusting that, there might be a day 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now where God is going to cause the growth. And you just have to be okay with that.
Absolutely. Well, it's so helpful. Even myself, I have a 5-month-old daughter, and I'm wondering what mistakes am I making right now that are going to cause irrevocable damage in the future. And so to know relinquish that control, try to get a bigger picture of what's going on.
That's right.
Is helpful. And you mentioned too in your sermon how really the most important thing we can do is model what it looks like to follow after Christ and not try to indoctrinate our children.
All the time, and I love just being able to. I've got to go home and apologize to one of them this afternoon. He wasn't awake but I was just too hard on him, and it's good for them to see that. Right. If my kids grow up saying my dad knew how to ask for forgiveness, that's a big win.
That's huge. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Anyway,
and so speaking of forgiveness. I think another one of the key parts of your sermon that is difficult to do in real life is forgive, especially within the family. I know there's a lot of people who family members have done things to them that have caused deep hurts, deep scars, and it's really hard to forgive and to move on in a relationship. But you talked about the importance of forgiveness, and so I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on practically. What does that look like? How do you forgive someone who's hurt you deeply and move past that?
Absolutely. Well, I think my hope, if anything, is when I talked about forgiveness, my hope is that there would be people in the crowd that when I talked about it, it elicited something inside of them that said, I need to do something.
Right.
And so that is a good thing. You just need to figure out what step you need to take to move forward. For some, it's as simple. The step is, there's not a long 10-step process you need to go through. It's really just you need to pick up the phone and you need to call and ask for forgiveness. And you're going to know if that's you. That's going to be clear to you. I need to pick up the phone, call my kid, or I need to call my parent. I just need to say sorry for this. For others, the pain is really deep.
Right.
And there might need to be several steps that you go through before you get to that point. You might need to go see a counselor. Counseling is for everybody. I've been to counseling. I wouldn't hesitate to go back.
That's right.
It might be that you need to start journaling your thoughts and emotions just so that they're actually getting out from inside of you, just to acknowledge that there is pain there and to start working through that. But the best thing you can do is invite trusted people in to the situation that you can start processing through it with them so that they can point you in the right direction. Ultimately, the thing with forgiveness is, and what I've learned personally in my life, is forgiveness is rarely, if ever, a feeling. If you ever wait till you feel like you're ready to forgive the person, you probably won't ever forgive them.
Right.
Forgiveness is usually a choice you make despite how you feel.
Right.
And so just knowing that you don't have to make that choice today.
Right.
You might need to go see a counselor. You might need to start opening up some friends. You might need to start journaling. But at some point, you're going to reach a day where you're going to have to say, okay, I need to choose to forgive.
Right.
And so if anything today, the goal is just to say, let's get a vision for that day.
Right.
And now take a step.
Right.
If you don't know what that step is, then go to counseling.
Absolutely.
Either professional or contact the church. That might be a great first step. Contact the church, sit down with one of the pastors here, and just start there.
Yeah.
But don't sit on this.
Right.
Don't sweep it under the rug, because time does not heal all wounds.
That's right.
Time makes wounds grow deeper.
That's right.
It really does.
Yeah.
They will have to be dealt with. So take a step.
That's huge. And I like that you mentioned that it's not about feeling like I need to forgive this person, but really it's more of an act of obedience.
That's right.
Like a lot of our faith journey, regardless of how we feel in the moment, we know I need to forgive this person. And then also you mentioned this in your sermon too, the importance of community. Because each situation is different. There's not like a ABC step to forgiving someone. So having people who are older, who are wiser, who have been through this themselves, that can counsel you, that's huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Timothy, for being here. It's always a blessing when you're here, really. And thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks for joining us for Postscript. Help us keep the podcast interactive by submitting your questions during the morning services. Learn more at faithbridge.org/postscript.